welcome to the latest health news that you will not see on the mainstream media. Alright, tea drinkers live longer. It says drinking tea at least 3 times a week is linked with a longer and healthier life, according to a study published today, well not today, January 9th, in the European Journal of Preventive Cardiology, a journal of the European Society of Cardiology. Okay, so this is crazy. At least 3 times a week is linked to a longer, healthier life. So how much? Well, this is what we're going to get into. It says, for example, the analysis estimated that 50-year-old habitual tea drinkers would develop coronary heart disease and stroke 1.4 years later and live 1.26 years longer than those who never or seldom drink tea. So people, estimate that 50-year-old habitual tea drinkers, okay, would not develop all these conditions until at least another year later. Okay, so a whole year basically added on to their life in a way, frankly. And then this is compared with never or non-habitual tea drinkers. Habitual tea consumers had a 20% lower risk of incident heart disease and stroke, and a 22% lower risk of fatal heart disease and stroke, and a 15% decreased risk of all-cause death. Incredible stuff here by the study. It just shows you the power of tea. They drink tea in Eastern countries. It's a common part, actually part of Eastern medicine. No wonder why the Western medicine complex is failing. It's not just that people are consuming many sugary drinks and coffees, which don't have frankly that much coffee in, because they're adding in creamers with sugars and then sugars on top of that. It's tea, because tea, yeah, you could still add milk and stuff to it. I'm sure some people do, especially those in America still, though. You're looking at Eastern countries, they're drinking these teas. Sometimes they're getting these flowers, sometimes they're fermenting it, they're not burning it, they're not doing anything crazy to it. These are real teas because they grow them there anyways, okay? And it's part of their culture, it's become part of their culture. Can we make our culture like this, so that way we have less disease overall? Some people need that relaxation. After all, we saw many people have anxiety, many people have depression. Maybe it's better that they have a jasmine green tea, for example, because then you have the benefits of green tea in addition to the jasmine flower that is going to help you relax, for example. Maybe it's chamomile tea, maybe you just want the flower by itself. Could be very beneficial for you. There's so many different teas, just like how there's so many different essential oils, just like how there's so many different superfoods and stuff like that, right? And that could benefit so many different people. So it says habitual tea drinkers who maintained their habit in both surveys had a 39% lower risk of incident heart disease and stroke, okay? A 56% lower risk of fatal heart disease and stroke, and a 29% decreased risk of all-cause death compared to consistent never or non-habitual tea drinkers. That is crazy, isn't it? And this is just a study on tea. So really crazy here, and I just wanted to mention this to a lot of you guys because, well, you wouldn't think, right? Well, tea, it's something that's out of the blue. A lot of people don't really it doesn't cross their mind. Yes, it's relaxing, it's good, and it's got a lot of antioxidants we hear in green tea, a lot of good benefits, but do we see these percentages, and do we see that it's actually a cardiovascular disease, something that Americans struggle with the most? And so it says, in a sub-analysis by type of tea, drinking green tea was linked with approximately 25% lower risk of incident heart disease and stroke, fatal heart disease and stroke, and all-cause death. However, no significant associations were observed for black tea. So why is that? Green tea and black tea are actually the same plant. Okay, they're just two completely different processes. The same with white tea, actually. White tea is supposedly the least processed, but green tea is the healthiest in many regards. And you're looking at black tea could sometimes just be burnt, not even fermented, not even that oxidation naturally processed like they've been doing for thousands of years. No, they could just straight up burn it. And this is a report, obviously. I'll cite this, by the health ranger from nationalnews.com. Mike Adams, I know he talked about black tea versus green tea there, and he's a scientist, so he kind of knows this more firsthand, I guess you can say. But green tea, just looking at all the studies, it seems to be much healthier than black tea, but it also makes sense, being that black tea has caffeine, so when you do burn it or oxidize it, you're talking about why do you want to consume antioxidants, because you don't want it to age. Then why are we aging the tea? It may be taking out some of the essential components, maybe adding in some carcinogens, because especially if you're burning it, that's what would happen. And so black tea is not going to have all the same components. and we want to look at that, right, is what's closer to nature and what's not closer to nature. And so when it's, of course, it's going to taste better because, you know, it's burnt and it's got higher caffeine because of that. So it says, quote, in our study population, 49% of habitual tea drinkers consume green tea most frequently, while only 8% preferred black tea. The small proportion of habitual black tea drinkers might make it more difficult to observe robust associations, but our findings hint at a differential effect between tea types. All right. So that just right there proves that green tea and black tea are not equal, okay? Even though they're the same plant, they're not equal. And although both of them do have benefits to some degree, because it's still a plant from nature, still has its potencies, black tea could be even more potent to some degrees that green tea doesn't, because it is burnt and stuff like that. You may compare that to like marijuana or coffee, for example, turning green to black or whatever. Right? And so you can look at that and you can maybe make some associations there, but looking at these great percentages and seeing that most of them were green tea drinkers in the first place, then yeah, maybe green tea is something we consume more in our life, especially if we are trying to get rid of something like coffee or other forms of caffeine in our life. And, you know, cocoa powder is a good form of caffeine as well, I would say. So it says first, and you got to keep in mind the caffeine structure in green tea is completely different from you know, looking at black tea or coffee. It's surrounded by more compounds, so it doesn't rush to the bloodstream, so you don't have to worry about that big spike. Okay, it's not that harmful for many individuals. So if you have like a lot of caffeine problems, maybe you want to try green tea, right? It says it's a rich source of polyphenols which protect against cardiovascular disease, and its risk factors including high blood pressure and dyslipidemia. Okay. Sorry, I've been talking a lot lately. It says black tea is fully fermented, and during this process, polyphenols are oxidized into pigments and may lose their antioxidant effects, right? And that's what we want. We want antioxidants because not only is that anti-cancer, but that's anti-aging. Okay, so second, black tea is often served with milk, which previous research has been shown may counteract the favorable health effects of tea on vascular function. So I absolutely love this research study. It talks about everything from milk to type of tea to, I just love this study. I think it's really interesting because, well, yeah, tea drinkers could live longer, right? It's more peaceful. It's not more relaxing. It's got all these antioxidants, you know, that's comparative with coffee, but yet it still provides you with a little bit of caffeine in there, but caffeine is completely different. You know, it's just a nice form of drink, I would say, that maybe you can add into your regimen rather than just getting rid of coffee. Just add in more green tea. You'll have less coffee. Maybe you'll see some symptoms go away for certain diseases that you may have or so forth, right? And you can naturally crowd out these bad foods or foods that don't serve you entirely, or because you're consuming them too much, by adding in water infusions or green teas or different teas together, or tea with essential oils or whatever it's got to be, you know. That could be really helpful for you.